Greetings, Bedouns from Melbourne, Australia. While I'm well enough to sit up in this chair and send you my communications personally on YouTube and Twitter, I would like to mention that overnight we have come across some good new evidence of British foreign policy in the 1960s, whereby the Foreign Office of what is now the United Kingdom had developed a policy for another colonial state that was aimed at stealing the identity of those people. Those people were an indigenous population to that island because they had been born on that island. They did have a heritage that went further back before in another state, but they were permanent members of that nation and of that land. They were discussed in a documentary by John Pilger in the 2000s. John Pilger is a well-known Australian intellectual and a personal friend of Julian Assange of WikiLeaks. Julian is from Melbourne, like me, and anyway, John is from Sydney. And I have tried to contact him before about the Bedoun case. However, he is an international speaker of great renown, and so no one has gotten back to me before about that. If I am able to contact his department through Sydney University at some time in the future, I will let you know, but to date I haven't had any luck with that. However, we know that that's fairly common in the Bedoun scene, and we have to wait until the profile of the case builds before we can get that kind of help, but let's just keep going. So we are increasingly building the information required for a case in international law, and we can take Kuwait to the International Court at The Hague for an advisory opinion. The Palestinians sought an advisory opinion about the Israeli war, and we understand that the political situation has changed and that is no longer as of benefit to them as it was before. However, this particular group that I'm talking about, who are in an island community studied by John Pilger, they were initially rejected by the UK government. They fought through the Supreme Court. And the good news is, just recently, although it's taken almost 20 years for that case to go through the court system in the United Kingdom and internationally, however, the wonderful thing is that the International Court has just handed down an advisory opinion telling the United Kingdom that it must cooperate with the International Court of The Hague's findings. And the findings are that the UK has to relinquish all control and follow the orders of the findings, which will restore those people to their home with full rights, citizenship rights included. Now, these people were actually all awarded British citizenship in an attempt to avoid them from being able to get citizenship of their actual home country. And now the court has decided that they still do have the right to receive the citizenship of their home country, because they have been able to prove, with the help of international law experts, that they were forcibly removed from the island. So they were all deported, but they also had their identity stolen as a fundamental part of those deportations. Now, you will recognise that the Bedouns have been threatened with deportation continually since the Arab Spring to various locations. There are a lot of really familiar aspects to this case, and the really, really disgusting, dreadful, inhumane way in which these people were treated, paralleling the Bedoun case. Now, in the past, so far, I have traced the development of knowledge through academic and political channels, and I have only so far found information about the development of the racist ideas that were handed to the government by Kuwaiti nationalist and Arab nationalist intellectuals. Okay, I have spent a lot of time combing through Foreign Office correspondence as well from the Colonial Office in India that was in charge of the colonial administration of Kuwait when it was a British protectorate state. I have not found this type of information that directly connects the UK with stealing Bedoun identity yet. The fact that the British Foreign Office has developed this policy in the 1960s and it mirrors what happened in Kuwait, and that Kuwait was a more valuable state to the British because of the oil, of course, tells me that it's highly likely that eventually we will be able to find that correspondence that has to be released to the public over time. Okay, so it's just a matter of us finding that evidence. Even if we don't find that evidence, we now have correlating facts that show the development of this type of policy was used against colonial or protectorate states. So this evidence in itself is highly valuable, and it's like the missing link because it knits together what we know about the involvement of Arab nationalists and Kuwaiti nationalists who developed a fanatical level of racism against the Bedoun because they were desert dwellers, and in particular people of the northern tribes, which was then related to their so-called Iraqi identity after the invasion of Iraq. Okay, and then we knit this together with the development of the national policy to exclude the Bedouins from the nationality law in Decree 5 1960, which you will have seen me going on and on about in my Twitter feed. Okay, so that enabled the nationality committees to intentionally exclude the Bedouins on the ground of their ethnic identity as Bedouins when they were first in Kuwait. And we know that a minority of Bedouins, other Bedouins who were urban dwellers and or who were not Bedouins, were still caught up in that exclusionary process. Okay, so this historical information ties together that important transition for Kuwait from being a colonial protectorate of Britain through to being a modern state where we did not have the direct evidence of the British involvement. Okay, we just suspected it. It's an intuitive conclusion that everybody comes to. Okay, and the fact that Decree 5 of 1960 was also passed into law in Kuwait before Kuwait became a modern state, that also indicates that the plan was on the cards when the British were in charge. Okay, this does not alleviate the responsibility of the state of Kuwait from granting all citizens, all Bedouins, all Kuwaiti Bedouins across the globe their right to citizenship. Okay, not to mention backdated rights and compensation for loss of rights and damages for human rights deprivation, including ethnic cleansing and the pattern of genocide that I have established that is based on Mohammed Al-Anisi's first discussions on British TV of genocide, and later my work with Hakeem Al-Fadli after the Arab Spring. Okay, so we can see it all coming together now as we increase our case with information, solid information. I have established that the policy to exclude the Bedoun in Kuwait was different to the policy used in other Arab states throughout the Middle East region, and that those states carried out the grant of citizenship and land and access to all other public resources, etc., to Bedouins who had to settle. They were forced to settle throughout the Middle East from the 1950s to the 1960s, according to an international plan that was carried out by the United Nations, UNESCO, the Arab League, the World Health Organization, the World Bank, I think, was also involved, and then other organisations that were given money to go and study the Bedouins and their capacity to settle and how they were going to settle and take on that citizenship, and also adapt socio-economically to the new modern state situation after the Second World War. Okay, so we now have, rather than just the Bedouins having to argue their case of human rights, we now have a whole lot of information coming in from the international arrangement through the United Nations and through Britain and through the Arab League, okay, coming in to conspire together to cause the Bedouins statelessness, okay, which is in addition to my thesis, my doctoral research on the Bedoun situation and historical evidence demonstrating that the state did it on purpose after fanatical extreme nationalists, Kuwaiti nationalists and Arab nationalists designed the policy themselves. Intellectuals who, many of whom happened to attend universities in the United Kingdom before they introduced this policy to government all the way up to the 1990s and probably until today. Okay, so I hope you can follow all of those different strands. I've already sent out a diagram on Twitter that shows all of the international factors that are coming together, coming together, maybe coincidentally, but I think it's a collusion coming together to cause the Bedoun statelessness, okay? So it's only a matter of time before we can launch a case in international law. My intellectual property needs to be respected by organisers in Kuwait, just putting that out there. They know what I'm referring to. So please don't drop me along this process, because you need permission to use my information for the legal case. Okay, so it's great news. Good luck today for your participation in the Diwan. That includes Bedoun speakers. Babyface is talking today, and Yusuf I won't say his name, but the talented legal thinker, and others, okay, that you have been invited to. So I hope you enjoy that. I hope you can follow everything I've said so far. Some of you won't be able to, and I apologize for that. This is kind of high level discussion about kind of really technical things, but some of you can, and I'm grateful for you hanging in there with me as this case unfolds, but also as it builds and builds and becomes stronger and stronger, preparing for legal action against the state of Kuwait and the United Kingdom if the state of Kuwait and the United Kingdom aren't able to get it together and provide all Bedouins globally with a citizenship really soon. Preferably, we are looking for commitments to come out of the Universal Periodic Review of Kuwait by the Human Rights Council of the United Nations in 2020. And don't forget that all NGO reports are due in mid-July of this year, 2019. Organisers and human rights activists in Kuwait, please don't drop the ball on this. I know there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment that you're very excited about, but it's really important that at this juncture we focus on this aspect of the case. And if you drop the ball before on the UPR reports, I will be reminding you that you did report in 2015 with Ebtihal Khatib and all of the citizen activists. The citizen activists then completely dropped the case. So I will be reminding you of that, and I will definitely be looking to make sure that you contribute to this UPR solidly with strong information. All of my information is public and available online. Credit me for it. If you don't, I'll also be a little bit cranky about that too. And just make sure that this reporting period is really strong, or your community is going to see that you weren't able to keep up the commitment consistently at the most crucial time of all, okay? We don't want to have to wait another 5 years for a serious commitment or serious pressure, international pressure from other communities, the international community, I mean, other countries, on Kuwait. This is the one time, the UPR is the one time that we can really pressure the state of Kuwait through the international NGO community, the international NGO community, meaning human rights organisations, and actually other states can pressure Kuwait into granting the Bedoun citizenship, and obviously Britain has an increasing role in that process. So we are really looking for a strong performance at this UPR 2020, okay, which the reports have to be in a few months for all of those Kuwait-based human rights organisations and individuals who can simply register as NGOs on the online system. And just reminding Bedouns out there, if you want to participate, you can also register as an NGO on that system, because obviously that information isn't coming down to you from the activists in Kuwait. So I want to let you know, if you've got any motivation or ambition to participate as human rights activists, that's a really good way to do it, to contribute to this upcoming reporting period, because I believe it's going to be historical. It is the first time that we are presenting evidence to the United Nations UPR, the Universal Periodic Review process, regarding the identity theft in detail. Before, it's been mentioned just as a throwaway and hasn't been focused on by other states or the Human Rights Council after all the submissions have been made, because it hasn't been discussed in depth, okay? It's just been glossed over, even by the human rights organisations. So this is the first time that we are really going to be submitting serious, in-depth evidence of ethnic cleansing, including identity theft, as well as violent ethnic cleansing in the 1990s, where you lost up to half your population. Okay, so hang in there. And I hope you enjoy the seminar today that you have been invited to participate in. I'm looking for the URL for the live YouTube streaming. Please pass that on to me if anyone has that. I'm looking for it on the Twitter feed and on the official notices. I can't find it. So organisers had better make sure that the whole community, the global community, can participate, as you have indicated to us that we can. Okay. And I hope that this news about the case building in relation to the responsibility of the United Kingdom, Britain, brings you happiness, some feeling of relief, because key to the Kuwaitis government giving you citizenship is going to be that pressure from the United Kingdom and the United States, who have been complicit in the violence in Kuwait to date that has been brought upon you. Okay, so I hope my message has been helpful today, and thank you for watching.